Let's start, I guess, with the most recent news, which is the Ruben Randall signing, kind of giving the Eagles some insurance at wide receiver. Now, here's a guy that if you just look at the numbers, you would say, all right, he's a pretty productive guy, 8 touchdowns, second-round pick. But he's a pretty inconsistent. I mean, I said he'll fit right in on this team because he's got the dropsies just like everybody else on this team. But was this kind of a shrewd move by Howie yesterday?
Yeah, they didn't get him for a lot. So, they didn't have to pay a lot to get him, rather. So, sure. I mean, you look at their receiving core, and it's Jordan Matthews, and it's Nelson Aguilar, and it's Josh Huff, and then they just signed the speedy guy in Givens, who really hasn't done much in his career so far. And, now you had a guy in Randall who, like you said, not only has, decent numbers, but his numbers generally, have improved from his rookie year until now. And you're getting a guy that's coming off his first contract in the NFL, so he's still young. You can still maybe do something with him. You mentioned the drops. The bigger concern for me is his ability to potentially torpedo a game. And by that I mean what he did in New York a lot of times is he would run wrong routes or he'd run lazy routes. And that's when you'd see sort of those, like those ha-ha-ha interceptions from, like on Twitter, like from Eli Manning, where, like, it looks like Eli Manning just threw it directly to the other team, but a lot of times it's because Ruben Randall was running the wrong route. So in a timing-based offense like they had there, you get a wide receiver running the wrong route, and the quarterback's unleashing the football, expecting the receiver to do one thing, he does the other, and it ends up, going the other way. So, yeah, he had some issues with that in New York and really frustrated both Eli and a number of their coaches. So that's the bigger concern for me. They're going to have to close him up. And, depending on what kind of offense the Eagles run, maybe that's not as big an issue in Philly as it was in New York. But as far as the signing itself goes, it's a talented player. He's a former second-round pick. He does have some upside. So I think it's a nice move, especially when you look at when they got him, 2 weeks into free agency.
So, Jimmy, you've got Randall. You've also got Chris Givens being mentioned. Tell me what that means for Josh Huff.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, really, Josh Huff, obviously he was a guy that Chip Kelly really liked. They drafted him in the third round. Obviously they had that familiarity together at Oregon. So, before they even brought these wide receivers aboard, it's kind of wondered what the new regime would think of him. I really have no idea whether they have big plans for him or not. But in terms of them adding 2 receivers, I don't think it's really an indication of they think one way or the other of Josh Huff, because before they made those 2 signings of Givens and Randall, all they had was Matthews, Aguilar, and Huff. So they had absolutely zero depth. So they're going to have to sign somebody at some point during free agency. So I don't really think it's a good indicator of what they think of Huff. But, they did have to kind of fill out that roster. Again, I really have no idea what they think of them.
Yeah, it sounded like a small law firm, right? Matthews, Aguilar, and Huff. So what are they?
A lousy one.
Yeah, not a good law firm at that. So then do they still look at wide receiver in the draft now, or what do you think of their draft plans and wide receiver? How does that mix?
Sure. I mean, they have 9 picks. I don't think they'll go into the draft saying we absolutely have to get a wide receiver like they will with the offensive line, where the offensive line, they absolutely have to draft offensive line help. I don't think you have to, quote-unquote, get a wide receiver, but, with 9 picks, I certainly think there's a good chance that they will add one.
Jimmy Kempski and the owners' meetings, it seems like the highlight of this owners' meeting was that Chip Kelly spoke and kind of addressed somewhat his time in Philadelphia, Jimmy. Did you learn anything from Chip, who seems like he doesn't give you much?
Yeah, well, he spoke for an hour, and I think there were like 8 of us, 8 Philly reporters when he first started speaking, and there were 2 San Francisco reporters. So we pretty much dominated the conversation. It was dominated by Philly, former Philly talk. And really the one big takeaway was just the complete front office dysfunction that the Eagles had last season. I mean, Chip said that he didn't talk to Howie at all. He said that Ed Manowitz kind of served as a buffer between the two.
Wild.
He kind of denied that it was, for personal reasons. He said that's just how it was structured. I don't know how much Chip was being completely truthful about everything that he said during his hour session, but clearly they had a situation, and Chip also denied demanding that he have full control of the 90-man roster, whereas Jeffrey Lurie has in the past said that he did. So there's a little bit of conflict there, and you kind of pick and choose who you want to believe on that one. But yeah, I mean, certainly the dysfunction that they had in the front office last season, where you have the guy who has control over the 90-man roster and the guy who is negotiating the contracts, as Chip pointed out also on Wednesday. When you have those two guys and they're not communicating directly at all, I mean, you're destined for failure. And we kind of saw what happened last offseason, where they overpaid a lot of guys and they made a lot of dumb moves, frankly. So it was not a good situation, and it ended the way it ended, obviously. But the way it was structured and set up really made no sense at all.
Jimmy, what was that like when you said that there was mostly Philadelphia media? Did he kind of give that smirk, like, I thought I got away from you guys? Like, what the heck are you all doing here? I mean, and I know, and I'll give you a chance to point this out, I know that a lot of the Philadelphia media got beat up on Twitter by people saying, let it go. That's your job to talk to Chip Kelly for the first time since he got fired.
He knew full well exactly what it was going to be at that table. In fact, the night before, the NFL had this big, lavish party at this resort in Boca Raton, Florida, and the media was allowed to be there. We were invited, and I actually ran into Chip, and I spoke to him for about 5 minutes or so, and he was kind of trying to feel me out about
about how many people are going to be there. What are you going to ask me?
Right. And I said, yeah, it's going to be full, those Philly guys. And he goes, well, I'm more than happy to talk 49er football all you guys want.
That's a Chip answer.
And I said something to the effect of, good luck with that, and I'll be there bright and early to greet you on Wednesday morning. So
did I hear correctly?
Did
I hear correctly that he quoted a few good men or something? What was that spiel?
He did. That was in regard to somebody asked him about the rule where you get 2 personal fouls and you're ejected from the game.
Okay.
And he said he made the comparison to A Few Good Men, where why did there have to be 2 whatever in A Few Good Men with Santiago. And he said if you mess up once, just get him out of the game. I can't. I'm not that up on A Few Good Men on that reference. But but his
Briggs, I think, is the other Lance Corporal.
2 personal fouls. If you do something worthy of being thrown out of the game after 1, then just get him out.
Yeah. Jimmy Kempski is with us, and you wrote the piece the other day, Jimmy, about that Chip didn't see his firing coming. Does that seem to jive? I mean, was this something that you think legitimately caught him off guard? Did he seem like that still, kind of shell-shocked when you guys talked to him the other day?
I was not surprised by that. I was not surprised that he didn't see it coming. And, I think most of the fan base didn't see it coming either. Most of the media didn't see it coming either. The timing of it really was the part that came as a surprise, where they lost to the Redskins and their season was essentially over, but they had a game left, and he had a press conference the following day. They had a press conference after the game, of course. He had a press conference the following day, and they let him kind of talk as kind of the face of the franchise at a press conference. And then I forget if it was that night or the next day when they canned him. But so the timing of it, I figured if you're going to fire a guy, then you wait until the end of the season. That's typically how it goes anyway, but I think they just wanted him out of there, and when he says that he was caught off guard by the firing, I believe him, because he said that he was game planning and for the next opponent and practicing and whatever else. So they just kind of sprung it on him, and he was out. And I had heard that he was out of there pretty quickly. They escorted him out of the building rather quickly. They didn't really give him much of a chance to gather stuff out of his office, and they got him out. But it was very unlike the way that Andy Reid went, obviously, when they fired him. But I do believe him there that he was taken by surprise when they let him go.
Just don't mess with that holiday party, man. He messed with the Eagles' holiday party, and there he was, out.
Audi 5. All right. By the way, So, does he seem like he has changed? Do you see a guy who is more NFL jiving? I don't know but do you look at a guy when you talk to me the other day like, you know what, this guy has learned, he's grown up a little bit. I don't want grown up's not the right word. He wasn't like an infant, but you know what I mean? Like, does he seem like a different guy? Like he took it all in and learned from this? You know, much like Howie has. Howie looks like a different guy from his little reprimanding.
God, no. he hasn't learned a thing. You know, when he was asked a number of times in a number of different ways, and not on purpose. In this kind of setting, you know, they talk for an hour, and reporters are jumping around from coach to coach and table to table. And I think the obvious question was, you know, what did you learn from your time in Philly, and how are you going to, you know, kind of implement what you've learned in San Francisco? And anytime he was asked by a Philly reporter that question, he just gave, you know, his little snarky chip kind of answer where he said, "Oh, I want to win more games," you know, and like not anything specific about what he's going to do in terms of, you know, like offensively or scheme or how he's going to deal with his players. And then he was asked about an Evan Mathis comment about where Mathis had said that the offense had grown more and more vanilla the longer he was there. And the stats kind of meet that out, where his offense is clearly great in 2013. They weren't nearly as good in 2014. And then in 2015, they were just terrible. And he said, "No, I don't think you got more vanilla," and the stats prove that. So we said, "Okay, well, how do the stats prove that?" He said, "Well, what do we finish? 12th?" And that's true. They actually did finish 12th in total yardage. However, they ran more plays than just about every other team in the NFL. They had more drives than just about any other team in the NFL because they ran that fast-paced offense. If you're running that fast-paced offense, you better be scoring and putting up more yardage than almost every other team in the NFL, because you're putting your defense out on the field more than any other team in the NFL as well. So, you know, if you're going to play that style of ball, then you better be a lot better than 12th. And the way that I look at it, I look at his efficiency in terms of yards per drive and points per drive. And the key word there is drive, not game. And on a per drive basis, I think they were 22nd in yards and 23rd in points. They were 29th in turnovers. They turned the ball over, you know, more than any other team in the NFL over the last 2 years. And then, of course, in time of possession, which, you know, he doesn't care about. And I kind of get to some degree. You know, they were last in the NFL in that, of course, both in per game and per drive. So, I mean, in terms of efficiency, the offense, and, you know, just on the eye test alone, you know, just on the eye test, the offense stunk in 2015, and he really just wouldn't cop to it. He really just kind of stood behind that one stat. They were 12th in the NFL in yards, and that's really kind of a meaningless stat, in my opinion, when you're running that kind of the fast-paced offense that they ran. And I don't see him changing anything, and I see him kind of having the same difficulties when he goes to San Francisco.
Jimmy Kempski, PhillyVoice.com. Jimmy, I guess one of these famous unnamed executives has said that he believes the Eagles will try to move up for Carson Wentz, who threw today at his pro day. And anytime you see a guy throwing an empty arena, it seems like they're the best quarterback you ever saw in your life.
Right.
But the question would be, they just got Bradford, they just got Daniel, and they moved up to 8. Would it be shocking to see them try to move up into the top 2 or 3 to go after Carson Wentz now?
I would be surprised by that. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they took a quarterback in the first round. But what's the cost? I mean, how much you got to pay to get up to that number 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever spot you get to get up to leapfrog, you know, the teams that might be interested in a guy like Carson Wentz or Jared Goff or whoever. And I mean, if you're looking at like a really elite quarterback prospect, and I actually really like Carson Wentz personally, but I don't think he's on the same level as a guy like Marcus Mariota was a year ago. Then again, if you have a guy like Marcus Mariota a year ago, then you're probably not talking about trading up, because whoever's, you know, down far enough to be able to pick him is just going to take him. Like, for example, the Browns are just like that if he's available. So, you know, I don't know that they'll spend a ton, and the cost to go from 8 to 2 would be enormous. I mean, let's be real. Even if the Browns don't see a huge drop-off on who they're going to get at 2 and who they get at 8, it's still going to be a hefty cost to get up that high to get your quarterback. So I don't know if I necessarily see that. Maybe they sit tight and see if one of those guys falls to them. Who knows if that's their line of thinking in terms of grabbing a quarterback round. I personally think they should if that situation kind of presents itself. But and to get up that high really kind of seems prohibitive for a quarterback who plays at North Dakota State and really didn't face top quality competition and really big risk to give up I won't say mortgage your future because quarterback is the future, but to kind of put a lot of draft pick compensation and players and whatever else it's going to cost to get up that high. I don't know if it's worth it.
All right, he's Jimmy Kempski, PhillyVoice.com for all the Eagle stuff, the owners' meetings and some rule changes, a lot of signings. Still, the Howie Roseman ride continues. He just continues to bring us on this ride. Just when you think you're out of tickets, he continues to hand. Here's another one, kid. Go ahead out there. Check him out at Jimmy Kempski on Twitter. Thanks, pal.
Appreciate it, guys.